Welcome to the Inversion Workshop. For those of you who are new to my practice, today we're using, you can see I have a couple of yoga blocks. I also have here a yoga bolster I might use. And then I do have a couple yoga blankets that also might be helpful. So inversion, a quick description here. Our inversion is a process of orienting the body in an upside down position. Now you can just invert your legs, you can invert or elevate your arms, or you can invert the pelvis, the torso, and the head. Full body inversions are where feet are highest point, head is lowest point, or arms are lowest point also potentially. Today we're going to talk about practical methods to get into a lot of different types of inversions that are easy on our body and that are intelligent and well-rounded. We're going to talk a little about the risks of inversions and the benefits, and how to kind of take inversions as a separate practice, just like you might do strength one day, or mobility one day, or flexibility one day. You might some days do an inversion practice, okay, where we really have the intention of, let's say, increasing blood flow into the brain. So we're going to look at postures that increase blood flow into the side of the brain, temporal lobes. We're going to increase blood into the eyes, the frontal lobes, prefrontal cortex. We're going to look at inversions that increase blood flow into the crown of the head, the top of the brain, back of the brain, okay? And we're also going to talk about how it affects your digestion. It can do a lot of things for the heart and the lungs, cardiovascular, respiratory. So, inversions can really have a huge impact on your health in many different ways, okay? So again, there are many ways to approach inversions. Some days I will hold headstand as long as possible. Some days I'll even do just a ton of handstanding. I'm not really going to speak to that a lot, especially handstand. I will mention shoulder stand, supported shoulder stand, headstand as our power one. So the idea in an inversion practice is to, let's just use the idea of a half hour for today's sake, is to keep your head below your heart in many different forms for, let's say, as long as possible. Now, just a little disclaimer here, there are some risks associated with, if you have cataracts, it can potentially be good for that. If you tend to have headaches, or you're new to it, really new to inverting the body, bringing the head below the heart, dizziness, you have blood pressure issues, you have cholesterol issues, there are some things where we want to be careful. If you're new to inversion, I wouldn't say, oh, let's go for a half an hour, right? So this is where a lot of responsibility is on the individual to listen to your body. And when in doubt, I want you to err on the side of caution. So I want you to listen to your body, be careful. Today, we're not going to do the whole half hour. What I'd like to do is describe the different type of inversions and how they affect you and playing a role in a well-rounded inversion class. So again, it's not like inversion practice like handstand practice, right? Some people say, oh, inversion practice, we're working on handstand the whole time, and that can be inversion practice. But I want you to think today of more, energetic inversions, ways we can really get in and create a well-rounded, intelligent inversion practice, okay? So when you're thinking about how we're going to approach this, the first part I always kind of think of is the front part of the brain. So inversions are redirecting blood flow, oxygen, nutrients, blood to cells to optimize the functioning on cellular, energetic, level. So our first inversion we do in yoga all the time. If I was feeling really good, I would do down dog hold. So I would try to hold down dog as long as possible, a meditation, okay? Getting my head as low as possible and holding. Now, let me just show you guys, this inversion represents a bringing blood flow into the front of the brain, okay? So we talked about, we're gonna have ones for the side of the brain, the ears. This is more of the eyes and the frontal lobes, the forehead here a little bit. So the goal is, you could hold down dog, breathing, and trying to keep your head low. You could go to child pose instead. So some days I'll do half-hour inversion practice. It will be child pose. Some days it'll be dog.
But other days it'll be kind of a dance in between. So I'll work here, work here, work here. There's a little bit more of a intense or deeper form of that blood redistribution to the frontal lobes. Notice my neck. You know the cues from our Hatha yoga, so we're not going to go over that. I do want to work on the Hatha yoga down dog approach because it'll allow me to be a little bit more efficient, using my body more intelligent, my hand intelligence, foot intelligence, to really, you know, just make this a lot easier on the physical body to keep the blood flow to the brain. So my first part of my inversion practice is usually frontal brain, frontal lobes, okay? This front part of the head, the eyes. So again, I've held this for 3 minutes, my shoulders feel tight today. I would keep that head low and I would go here. Either way, head is below heart, and I'm increasing blood flow into the front of the brain, okay? So again, we're not gonna do this as a group. It's a workshop to help you design a inversion practice, okay? Remember that this is really good for your hair, good for your skin and scalp, good for wrinkles, good for just brain function in general, okay? So our first part of our inversion sequencing we're learning to create this practice is down dog or child pose, okay? And that represents more of the front brain. So say you hold that for the 5 minutes, or really as long as you can. Some days I'll emphasize more isolated parts, like I'll do a really long side brain hold. I try to feel where I feel like I have cloudiness or stagnation. Now the second part of my inversion practice would be the side brain. I would reach my right hand forward, I'd thread the needle, left arm underneath. Now the objective is to keep, now you can do this in child pose, okay, easiest. Now, if I can keep my hips a little higher, that's a little bit better for redirecting the blood, okay? So my head is below my heart and my left ear is turned down, and I'm trying to get very comfortable. Most people don't really recognize this as an inversion. It's actually, you know, pretty unique, where my head is resting down, I'm trying to get comfortable, and I'm just letting that blood flow increase to the brain. I'm meditating here. So when I do this, I won't really sit upright. I will hold my down dog, hold my child pose, hold my down dog, hold my child pose, and then I will come into this thread the needle, and I'm relaxing. Some practices I might start with, or use something like headstand, which would be the crown of the head inversion. I might have already thrown that in there. But I'm starting today's with a little bit more easy approach, okay? I don't really consider handstand part of the inversion process because it's so strenuous. Trying to hold a handstand for 5 minutes is, one of the most difficult things you can work towards in yoga, right? So I'm just increasing blood flow into the left side of my brain. And now I would hold this 3 to 5 minutes. If I was trying to do well-rounded, 3. If I was doing a special practice, an inversion, it would be 5. And I would just meditate here. What's the idea is I would just come back to center, keep my head below my heart, and then the second part is where my right ear goes down. So now I'm just going to take about a minute there, and to see this as sequence, right? Increase blood flow into front of brain, increase blood flow now into side of brain. So it's kind of like forehead, eyes into ears and side brain, right? Now going a little further, we are reversing digestive tract. So, the curvature of the digestive tract, and, non-fibrous foods can get caught in all those curves, especially things like meat and dairy, little to no fiber at all, right? The fibers will kind of help stuff move through the digestive tract, let's say. And sometimes those sticky foods I mentioned can kind of get caught in those kind of turns and crevices. And potentially the upside down position can help, in a sense, maybe unclog a little bit of that stuff. It's also really good for the musculature of the viscera, the digestive organs. And as we flip here, we can get a lot of, this prolapsing of organs where
organs kind of lose shape or form or position or adhesion. So like organs will stack atop each other, let's say, or all organs are kind of surrounded in muscle. That's how peristalsis is, moves the food, the nutrients through the body. And remember, muscle is fascia. So fascia surrounding muscle and organs, this fascia we've talked about. And as we flip, you can maybe, let's say your stomach is sitting heavy atop another organ and it's kind of compressing all down. As we flip, you might get this kind of decompressive stretch. It's almost like a stretch for your muscular organs potentially, right? So that muscle tightening and adhesion and prolapsing can restrict or reduce quality of digestion, things like that. There are many layers there in the digestive tract that can potentially be helped via inversions.
All right, guys, so listen. We've done the front of the brain. We've done the sides of the brain, right? So now we're going to swing our legs around and we're going to go to, I'm going to just demo. We're not like doing this as a group. We're learning to what an inversion practice is, how to create and apply it. So next inversion could be bridge, right? You could hold bridge posture. That's going to now increase blood flow to the back of the brain. Look, we started front here. We wrapped around the side of the head, and now we're going more to the back of the brain. You know, the cerebellum is there, coordination center. This is lower back brain. Now, here's where you can start to go something even as easy as restorative bridge. So I got a little bolster for today's sake underneath my pelvis, right? I'm going to stabilize myself here. And now this does it, right? It's kind of like the back of the brain shift now, okay? With practice, you could do this pose. Now here's your first full body inversion. From all the way to the feet to the back of the head, you're getting, you know, your inversion here. Feet drain down to the back of the head. So we're going from our front of our head, wrapping around. Now, this is awesome. You could stack two bolsters, but I do want to show you a more full body inversion here. This is always good to be warmed up, and it is good to use blankets here. So I would like to demo. That is called supported shoulder stand, what I was just, the weight's kind of shifting back to your shoulders there because you're going like this. Now, for full shoulder stand, it is always good maybe to use blankets if you'd like. This posture is a little bit more risky for sure because you're shifting more weight. Now, here on your back, notice how the blanket kind of comes right up to my shoulders because I'm just creating a little bit more lift. Now, shoulder stand is this posture where I use my arms, my core, reverse crunch, to lift my hips and to bring my hands to my lower back. So the hands become what the bolster was. Don't look at the screen. You see me twisting? That's a bad idea here. Okay? Back of the head down. Now I work here to bring my hips up higher. I kind of walk my shoulders together under me more. My hands will kind of come more toward my shoulder blades. And I'm starting to stack the body more. Do you see how I was initially more here? I first was on the bolster. And what's happening is I'm using my core, my arms to get the hips higher. Now, this is going to be a lot more intense on your neck, a lot more risky. It is weight bearing. It's big compression, big hyper range. So in yoga, this is called the queen of yoga postures. Out of all millions of yoga poses and work you could do, this is the queen. So it must be pretty important if the ancient yogis talked about this. Now, one of my yoga teachers, Dharma Mitra, said his teacher for physical yoga would only do shoulder stand mainly, about a half hour a day, a meditation. Here you're going to get a lot strong effects on that. Each inversion has different effects of the digestive tract, okay? But something else I want to speak to now is called your lymphatic system. In the email, I mentioned it can increase immune function. Remember that you always want to come out of inversion slow. Err on the side of caution. Start with very short holds. As we string an inversion sequence, just like vinyasa, you might do warrior one, you might do warrior two, you might do reverse warrior, you might do side angle. We now are stringing inversions together in sequence, which in a sense is more advanced. A lot of times we'll hold inversion down dog, but then we'll switch it up and let the blood flow kind of come back down, up, down, right? Now we're up, down, down, we're inverted, 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 inverted. So we are doing an inversion practice, okay? So now I'm talking lymphatic system. The lymphatics are your circulatory immune system, the lymph nodes, the lymphatic vessels. Now, lymphatic vessels don't have like blood pressure, right? It is a fluid where the interstitial fluid, the fluid outside the cell that has waste of the cells, these vessels, these channels, all the way in the feet, they're everywhere. They drain, they run upward, right? And there's no blood pressure. Muscle contraction and gravity can help move these. But as we go outside, we are potentially helping lymphatic drainage and movement. This fluid will go through your lymph nodes, which are sacs surrounded with immune cells. And we are helping things move. It's really not good if your lymphatic system gets stagnant, stuck, doesn't work properly. That is like, should be a red alert, an alarm going off in your body. So inversions can really help this aspect of us as well. So let's exit that position, please. So in inversion sequence here, yogis, we did our frontal lobe. So it was child pose mainly, and it was down dog mainly. All right, I'll switch between the two. Then we did the thread the needles. There are other options for that, but that is where we're going to start today. And then we did the back. It can be bridge, it can be restorative bridge, it can be supported shoulder stand, it can be full shoulder stand. One more little option there, if I may demo, it's bolster against the wall. You could just put leg up the wall, but I want to try to get my butt on the bolster. So this is even easier, yogis, here. I do try to invert my pelvis. The reason I want my pelvis higher than my heart, we have this vein called the hepatic portal vein. And this is a really large vein. It's like the size of like a quarter, right? That's huge for blood flow. And it goes from, it's not the size of a quarter in everyone, but it goes from your, let's say, small intestine area to your liver. And what that vein carries is all the chemicals of your ingested food through the liver for chemical processing. And that vein runs upward. Remember, veins also don't have blood pressure. It's a valve system. And electrical, right? We know now that the veins use charge. Each blood cell has like, iron, and it's all magnetism and electric also, but we're using gravity now, orienting the body upside down to drain that blood from digestive tract to the liver, all right? There's a lot of evidence about how the kidneys, the endocrine, I haven't talked about it yet, but the glands, the thyroid, the pineal, the pituitary, thyroid, thymus, adrenals, pancreas, gonads, they all can really be affected, cleansed, the hormonal chemical body. So the hepatic portal vein is where I was trying to work this, every chemical you ingest, they say, not every, but most, go from digestive tract to liver via hepatic portal vein. So really good process there to start getting now the pelvis above, even though down dog does it too, but we still are going to get different effects to the posterior digestive, endocrine, lymph, to the anterior. So there you go. There's your posterior. Now, I want to get to our final part here. We're keeping it very simple. So we've done this, yogis, where we started forehead, eyes. We wrapped around to ears, side. We now seeing it in sequence in full picture, nutshell here. Now we went back of the brain lower. So what are we missing? It's like the top of the brain, okay? Now this tends to be the most difficult for a lot of people to access. In yoga, we do headstand. But in the beginner forms, it's forward bending, right? So it looks like this, yogis. The easiest aspect here is to like put your heels on a blanket, just so you're not like forcing the flexibility too much. And then you just try to get your head low. You can put your hands on blocks, try to engage and lengthen your core. Notice my knees are bent, my head is low. But the objective isn't really to have the front of your head aiming down. It's more to have the crown of your head aiming down. All right, so this is where it all starts, right? If you can't do headstand, the idea is forward bend in Tanasana. Now I came up pretty fast there, and you could feel, woo, a little blood rush there. So there's where I'm saying that these inversions can be, they can have some risks, just like anything. A lot of risk involved with running potentially, or the weightlifting potentially, easy to get injured in those mentioned activities. But there's also a lot of benefit to be had, like risk versus reward. A lot of times, high risk can yield high reward, but being able to be aware of what our risks are is very important. So, the brain isn't used to maybe getting this much blood flow. When we look at the property of the normal oriented body, the heart is a pump, let's say, right? And it's pumping blood up what's called this carotid artery. And it's arteries that run up the neck that start to distribute blood into the brain and into the eyes, the ears. And I mean, think about that. Your blood is pumping a liquid. Your heart is pumping a liquid up against gravity. That makes a lot of work for your heart. And remember that the heart is a muscle, and it never gets a break, right? It's a special type of muscle cell, cardiac muscle, and it's constantly working. Imagine your biceps are constantly working, how sore or overworked, tired you might be. That's why things like Shavasana, meditation, the parasympathetic response are so key. A healthy diet, keeping the insulin low, and keeping the microbiome healthy, the brown fat and the white fat. That's another story. But here what we're doing is allowing the heart to work a little less. What happens is also the heart sits on top of the diaphragm, the lungs do too. And I mentioned this idea of fascial density and adhesion building, where repetitive patterns and weights sit in less movement. So as we flip your heart upside down, I mentioned this in the organ viscera, the digestive viscera, the cardiovascular viscera, heart and lungs more. As we flip, they start to kind of, in a sense, muscularly, physically move downward in that position, but upward actually, off of the diaphragm, to create some more freedom here. We don't want fascial hardening around the heart, right? Or the lungs. The lungs are created to expand and contract. So, musculoskeletal, fascially speaking, we can get a lot of benefit there. But a little bit deeper in the cardiovascular realm, the blood flow easier to get to the brain. So, with that being all said, now in this final part of inversion practice, the head is here. Here, 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 right? To start to mimic a full body inversion, now flexibility is required, you can do stuff like this. Now, you're not putting all your weight in your hands, right? You have some, but this is almost full body crown inversion, it's called. Frontal inversion, side lateral inversion, posterior inversion, brain inversion, and now crown inversion is where we are. Now, I'd like to go over the final part. Is the headstand, or what's usually called the Raja Yoga pose or the King Yoga pose, the King and Queen, right? The headstand and shoulder stand. It is recommended to pad, right? We don't want to beat up your head, but actually there can be some benefits to having a firmer surface for the inversion of the crown. Now, headstand, if you are going to start to work into it, usually starts against the wall. And we have multiple styles of headstand. Now, the first part of headstand is intertwining your fingers and then kind of cupping the back of your head. So eventually you'd be like this. Now, notice you don't want your elbows too wide. You see that? I want the elbows hugged in. And remember that the crown is down. This is not what we call Kepa, Shirshasana, or Kapasana. It's for headstand. That is really advanced yoga. You should be able to hold headstand for let's just say 10 minutes as a general rule before you start to, go into back bends, go in headstand, go into side bends, go into twists. So we have this headstand here, right? It requires a lot of shoulder flexibility, a lot of shoulder strength. You're gonna work your shoulders here. There's also headstand B where you're like this, right? So headstand A was like this, headstand B, headstand C. We have butterfly stand back here. But I'm going to keep it simple and just show you A and B. This is when I usually do my inversion, right? Down dog, child pose, down dog, child pose. Thread the needle,
posterior body inversion, you know, legs supported. If I'm feeling tired, up on bolster or shoulder stand. And then headstand, let's say. It doesn't have to be that order. Sometimes I start in headstand. Reverse. Sometimes I mix it up, okay? So headstand here, if you do want to start learning, I do suggest a wall. And obviously, we are putting weight on our neck. So there now here we come into more physical risks. Spinal compression, spinal, you know, obviously a muscle can seize up. You know, you're putting compression through your spinal column that it's not used to. The neck is not used to bearing weight. So it's good to do things like this to start. So, you know, just to get your body used to, this is a good way to start, right? I have weight in my hands, my knees, and I'm pushing weight down to the crown. This can be considered the crown inversion. Now, a little bit more, push weight to your hands and your feet, and I'm here. And I'm starting to go here, okay? So this is that crown inversion. Notice I'm not tense in here, and the shoulders are back and down, just like Tanasana. I'm coming here. Now, with practice, I am showing headstand B. I usually mix it up. There's not like a better one. And I'm here. This is like a half headstand, and boom, you can start to go here. Now, I do suggest, you know, this is just showing you the prep stuff. So this is crown, and you can go like here. Almost full headstand, right? And always exiting from these more weight-bearing, strong inversions slowly. You can't talk to the idea of learning the idea of a lot of focus on the entrance and exit. That's key, guys. Usually it's like the entrance and exit is maybe where you're going to hurt yourself. The exit too slow or fast. Again, there are maybe some sore days associated with working into headstand, particularly around the neck and the shoulders. I don't really get that anymore. I do headstand quite often. I love that pose. Very unique in yoga. Now, headstand A against the wall. You cup your hands, crown down, the back of the head's into your hands. Don't let the elbows go wide. Common mistake, elbows are too wide. Elbows in. Press through your elbows. One leg goes up, and a little hop, press through my forearms, find the wall. You don't want to be like too close to the wall, maybe like 6 inches away from the wall to start, okay? So I want to hop and find this wall. And then I'm going to here. And then this is how headstand starts. You're not going to flip over in your back. Now, I do want, the problem here is you don't have to like press through your forearms on the wall. I want you to try to press through your forearms and bring one leg kind of off the wall, okay? So I'm pulling my belly in, I'm reaching up with my feet, my heels, my toes, and I'm breathing. Now, initially in headstand, you want to like activate your legs, but eventually I do relax them, okay? When I decide to exit, it's really slow, right? I didn't let my neck bend. I kept the crown down till I get my head down, my feet down, and then I slowly come up. It's recommended, yogis, to come out of headstand, either hold child pose, down dog, or forward bend to let your neck decompress. All right? Because there's a lot of compression there. So after compression, decompression makes sense, right? So that's important to remember, guys. So we ran through it all. So let's look at how I might do this in my own practice, again, as an overview. So, okay, I'm starting my inversion practice. Usually I'll have like my timer sitting here so I can kind of see where I'm at. So if I was doing my inversion practice, I'm gonna hold, and breathe. If I'm doing my inversion practice, I feel a little tired, I keep the head low, I'm here. Then I might keep the head low, come back to inversion. Then I hold. Okay, I did 5, I did 8 minutes. The longer the better, really. Frontal lobes, right? Then I might keep the head low. Look at that, thread the needle. See how the head never went above the heart? I hold. 2 to 5 minutes. Keep the head low, inversion, second side. Now you're seeing it. The head never goes below the above the heart. Inversion, unique to yoga. If you're watching what I do, I keep my head below my heart. I just roll on my back, legs up, maybe hips up here. The head never went below the heart, yogis. You see that? So now I'm working my posterior. So I went front, I went side. Okay? From here, I try to keep it like this. I roll back onto my chest, keep my head below my heart. I go into my headstand, or
my crown. Now I might start in my crown here, then go to frontal, then go to lateral, then go to posterior. What we're learning is to see inversions as a practice. To really embody what an inversion is and why we do it. Inversions is one of the majesties of yoga. People will do fitness their whole life and not recognize inversions. I mentioned all the benefits of reversing your digestive tract, helping your lymph, helping the certain blood qualities. Remember lymph and the venous blood? The veins is where all the carbon is from after the cells breathe and, you know, cellular metabolism, all these different things, even catabolic function where autophagy and apoptosis and all these cellular functions give off waste. And that's all in the veins and in the interstitial fluid. So veins and lymph are both two like cleansing fluids of the body. And like I mentioned in the email, this can really boost like detox, cleansing of the body, not, you know, fat and water soluble, potentially chemicals. Okay. So there is our inversion practice in a nutshell. Now, I didn't speak to things like forearm balance or handstand really, but those can obviously be used as power inversions on a really good day. Will I hold handstand out the wall? You know, some inversion practices, yes. You know, forearm balance, there's chin stand too. We do this certain one I'm not going to include today, where we increase blood flow into like your thyroid. Puppy dog would be the easy version. For the quick demo, it's this posture here. So my chin is like the lowest point, okay? And you hold. Chin stand is that other one here, or you could just go like this really too, right? But there is the inversion idea of bringing blood flow into the bottom of the neck. In yoga, usually not considered as important as all the crowns, but another little note there just in case you wanted to add that. All right, guys, so that there's our micro workshop about inversions, about how to start applying your own inversion practice in a nice, healthy, safer, practical way. So easiest is child pose, thread the needle, supported bridge or legs up, and then the forward fold at the front of your mat. And that is a full inversion practice, guys. There has to be one though where the legs are getting up, and that should be a long hold. You try to go even, like I said, my record I've done a headstand is 25 and then 48 seconds, and you got to get your legs up because that is what's the lowest part of your body. I wanted to mention this quick, that you know, it's very difficult once that blood goes through your capillaries in the feet to go all the way back up to the heart, right? So getting a long hold can't be really brief, because that's a long way for these things to travel from the tips of your toes all the way down back to your, you know, this vena cava, where the lymph dumps right in here into the veins, back into like the heart, into the main. The lymph goes back into the bloodstream about here after it passes through all the cisterna chyli and all the lymph nodes. And that's where it's, you know, all right, the interstitial fluid and plasma mixes back with the blood, and, you know, the process starts over again, you know, getting the food and the nutrients from the digestive tract, getting the oxygen from the lungs. So with all that being said, yogis, there's your inversion practice. You know, it's usually suggested a couple of times a week. It's really good for skin and scalp, hair, and all parts of the body have effects via the inversions. All right. So thank you guys. If you have any questions, please shoot me an email. I will put this video up on YouTube. I really appreciate you guys. Namaste. Thank you.